Welcome to People in Common. I'm Jama Adams. This is a podcast where we talk to leaders about connecting their personal stories to what's happening in this moment. What are we supposed to do? How do we translate values into action? How can we be people in common? John, today we're doing something a little different. John Bonanno has agreed to be the guest host, to put me in the interview chair about a really cool project that we're doing together. And so welcome, everybody. I'm so excited. John, over to you.
Well, first and foremost, welcome to Ground Zero. Jama is the leader of this movement to set up the expectations of people that are listening to this. We have been friends for a fair bit of time, and I have gotten great joy out of that relationship. You came into me and you said, hey, I want people to know a little bit more about me. And I said, that's a great thing to do because we need to raise our personal voice, and we need to also illustrate our values and illustrate our actions of change.
You are good at this. You do this like every day when you're walking.
That is really, if I'm being honest, that's a lot of therapy for myself, so I can get the gerbil off the hamster wheel. Because I'll have something that I'm working out or I'm working with, and I just say, okay, here it is, and now I get to walk away from it. And it can be a learning, it can be an insight. People seem to like it, which is great. And it feels like we build camaraderie because we see each other in the morning, every morning. Yeah. At conferences and stuff, people come up to me and they say, I love walking with you in the morning. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I get it. Yeah, right. Well, I'm also chasing my dog down most of the time. So
you're working through whatever's going on.
But as an example, I also went up this morning alone because my dog is on spring break with my wife.
I was like,
yeah, he's traveling right now. But I walked myself this morning, and it felt awesome because there's also something I'm working on around beauty and peace. So, and people can do this anywhere. Like people set themselves out towards nature, and even just a short walk near a stream or just a quick walk around the block, it just opens up our senses. It connects us with something more real that's so essential to creativity, to being productive, to being grounded, to being less sort of anxious driven. And
I mean, literally movement is the antidote to anxiety.
Yeah.
And fear.
Yeah.
Right? Just start moving.
Totally true.
Yeah.
Totally true. So I always suggest people to do that, and also breathing work or meditation and other things. But some people, they find that very, that's woo-woo, and I can't have that. That's too crazy, It's like, okay, fine. Do what's right for you. Anyhow,
deep breath. The
point of this is to speak about you and also understand a little bit more about your past. And I have a skeleton, Jama's background, and I would like to know a little bit more about, mom, dad, siblings, if there were any, pets, places, holiday areas that were interesting to you, things that were maybe sort of transitional or pivotal in like who you are today.
John is surprising me, y'all. This was supposed to be about the group that we are in together called The Innovators. And he's starting with my childhood. I love this. Let's do it. All right. The first thing that popped to mind is that my grandparents met at an interfaith social justice activist meeting, which I think probably tells you almost everything you need to know.
Where was this?
So, my grandmother's originally from Toledo, Ohio. My grandfather's originally from Chicago, but this was in Los Angeles. They had both moved to Los Angeles. It was the 50s, and they're both very devout social justice Catholics. Came to this meeting during the civil rights movement, like to be as two white people trying to be allies is what we would, I guess, say now. Anyway, I start there because unlike most people, I grew up talking politics every day. I grew up protesting in my Girl Scout uniform. Like, you know, all of my people were getting arrested for their beliefs. And that's just like, that was part, right? So I realize how weird that is, right? But you are who you are. So I was like, my first campaign was like, I think I was 12 when I first volunteered, like officially volunteered on the campaign. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a weird way to grow up. It is. But it's sort of, it fit for me because I think I popped out being like, what? There's unfair things? Let's freaking go at it. Let's go fix that.
Let's go solve it.
Let's go solve that, you know?
Yeah.
And so to grow up in a political family, then it was like, oh, well, that's the tool. Like, of course, like, okay, change laws, period. My grandfather ended up being a constitutional law professor. And actually my parents met because my dad was taking his class and then volunteering on his campaign to run for Congress, which he did 3 times unsuccessfully, all 3 times. you know, Don Quixote, right?
Man.
He's like, let's do stuff.
Yeah.
He actually proposed, he proposed a law that never obviously took hold to pay women for work inside the home. I'm like, man, so that's activists kind of like, let's just change stuff that's wrong. And so that is like, if I dig deep, that's who I am, right? I'm like, let's just change. Okay, whatever we need to do, let's just change it. Let's just do it.
Yeah. Reality that's pliable is essential to the next frame being what we more want. And I love that concept of, you know, we see guys like speaking about plasticity of your mentality or plasticity of your brain.
Yeah.
What people don't
Growth
recognize,
mindset.
is that but the next frame of our reality is also as plastic or as flexible. And it comes down to our values, our assumptions, decisions and choices that we make, ideas, beliefs we hold, etc.
Yeah.
And when we start modifying those, we start seeing the reality changing in like a drift manner, which is exciting to see. Very interesting start of your political history. Really wonderful, actually. And so did you end up doing elementary school, middle school, high school in the Los Angeles area?
Yes. Yeah.
And then you say, I'm getting out of Los Angeles, or you go to university in Los Angeles?
Yeah. I accidentally stayed home. That was not the plan. I was like, I'm getting out of here. Let's go see the world. Then UCLA happened.
Yeah.
God, it was so great.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Go Bruins.
Yeah. Okay.
Our women's team is #1 in the country. No big deal.
Women's soccer, basketball.
We're in the middle of March Madness.
Oh, so let's move forward a little bit. And are there any siblings, by the way?
I do. I have 2 little brothers.
Wow.
2 baby brothers.
So the oldest. Okay.
Of course. Shocker, right?
Yeah.
Oldest child.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have a personal view because I'm one of 4. Is that
Where do you fit in?
That kind of messiness between siblings makes you all a little more resistant, makes you a little more, whether it's physical or whether. So then you transition out of UCLA, and we are now at the first sort of thing of recognition was, you know, you got behind this idea that merged a bunch of really interesting things of sort of this capitalism with philanthropy, with impact and mission. And it had some ideas around policy. Talk a little bit about how Pledge was born.
Totally. Okay. So the Giving Pledge was Warren Buffett. It still exists. It is Warren Buffett and Bill and Melinda Gates, who basically had the idea to get more people to give more away. So the Giving Pledge, this is 2009. This is fall 2009. Someone reached out and said, hey, they have this idea to change the norms around wealth. Like that's the ultimate goal. But really it's just, hey, let's get more people to do this. We're having fun. Like we have this cool foundation. Warren Buffett's giving us all his money because he's like, you guys seem to know what you're doing. We're giving this money away and we're solving problems. Like we're being helpful. We're doing something useful with all this money. And so we want to spread this, make the new gospel of wealth, like originally, to play on the kind of, the origins of philanthropy, go back to a book called The Gospel of Wealth. So we were thinking about what's the new gospel of wealth. Okay. So that in the beginning, but a lot of cool, interesting people. Basically, when somebody, reached out, I was like, sign me up. And so I was like employee one, right? The first person to be hired to work on this.
And this was housed within which foundation?
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Okay, so they incubated this idea within that. Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so we were originally just, okay, let's look at all these models here. What is the history of philanthropy? What are we trying to do? Like get really clear about the goals and outcomes and things. And then we launched it with 4 of those role models. Who's actually doing this?
Already.
Let's gather them. Yeah.
Right.
Let's gather these folks.
Right.
And say, like, here's what this looks like. And doesn't it sound cool? And don't you want to be part of this? And so we like invited people in, and now it's grown. It's in that first 3 years that I was working on it. I think we were at 100 people had joined in those first 3 years. So that was $1 trillion of wealth represented by those 100 people. Incredible. We were delighted. There were setbacks and there was criticism, good criticism, even then, but even more so now of, but giving to what and how quickly. And when you're talking about that kind of wealth, like even giving it all, there's just so much, right?
Yeah.
And all of those are fair criticisms. I think at the end of those 3 years, we had started to change those norms, though. I mean, I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of. Right?
And just the mechanics of it it was 1% of people's worth, or was it 99% of people's worth at the day of their death?
No,
right?
So the mechanics were you have to give half or more.
Okay.
By your death. Like, so just period.
By your expiration date.
Like, and that was part of the criticisms were like, well, you're not even making them give it away now. Right. So like you can join the pledge technically and not really do much. Anyway, there were a lot of things. I mean, now it's 250 or more people, which is, it's sadly we've minted a lot more billionaires and the pledge percentage has not kept up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. And the wealth inequality obviously has gotten so much worse.
Yeah. So from the genesis of the idea until 36 months later, you had $1 trillion under management, let's say.
Yeah.
But it was future management because there was no real cash flow for this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And then today we've moved forward to 250 people involved and more like $3 trillion-ish dollars. Is that about where it is? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's super interesting because thinking differently is a key component here of innovation, and taking the gem and looking at a new facet always gives us a new insight. So I'm inspired by that. And at the time I was a little confused by it, honestly.
Yeah.
What it meant, because it had some folks in that party that were, I don't think they were aligned with social fabric. Like they were building a tool that would addict young children to, and now they're guilty of it. But, various people that were participating, you're like, really?
You're not charitable,
not
is
really.
what you're thinking. Yeah. No, totally.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
And a little bit so I thought of all of that as community organizing, right? Like, okay, for the most over-resourced group of humans that has ever walked the planet.
Yeah.
But it's the same concepts. And certainly like, if you look at my career, forwards or backwards, actually, what I it comes back to that. Let's just change stuff. Like, let's make things better.
Right. But there is a process to it. And can you dissect that a little bit? Give me like a step 1, 2, 3, 4 of how you looked at it at the time. And then, of course, as you then went to Commonwealth Fusion Systems, a place where we have shared history, but there's a process to it too.
Yeah.
So can you dissect that a little bit so people can learn from it?
Totally. I mean, I think when I say it's community, like the community organizing is one frame to look at how do you take something from 0 to 100. And I think what I realized is that's what I love to do. Kind of the place I always end up on purpose, is helping things either get off the ground or take them to the next level.
Right.
And so the Giving Pledge, for example, we knew this was a good idea. We knew where we wanted to go, but what's the in-between steps? And so it's like everything, much like community organizing, it was, okay, let's get some leaders, right? So first thing you do is find the people who are already converted, the leaders.
The flashlights.
And you say, exactly.
Right.
And in our case, it was the role models, the people, Tom Steyer and Kat Taylor are, local to the Bay Area here. They were living this. They were doing this. They had given away a lot. They were talking about it publicly. That was one of the really interesting early challenges is there were so many people who were like, yeah, but I like to be anonymous. And which I, on the one hand, respect because I'm like, okay, you're not trying to get all the credit.
Right.
I more power to you. On the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but then nobody knows you're doing it. So then it doesn't actually
You don't inspire
help.
others.
Yeah, there's no movement there. Like you're just kind of doing it. And anyway, so you take those leaders and those early adopters, the disruptor, whatever you want to call them, the leaders, and you put them out in the world as the examples. So we did the big announcement of it. And then we would do these small gatherings, right? And we would invite people, both people who had already kind of been out there in the world like this and people who had never even heard of this, who were not even thinking about that part of their lives. I mean,
were you sort of focusing on cities and then you do like a dinner or something like this?
Yeah, we would just bring people together.
Bring them together, talk about it. Right.
Yeah. And then it grew from there. And then there's still an annual gathering and there's kind of, there's lots there about how you keep and sustain an organization, right? And encourage people to do more.
Right.
And in our case, to learn from each other. There were a lot of, there's some really good examples of people who are doing much better philanthropy because of the kinds of interactions that they had. Either just we brought them together so they could talk about it, or there was plenty of like co-funding and things that really, and that I think is some of that is just not public, right? Which makes it hard. But some of that is just more behind the scenes and it's not as sexy, right? Like everybody wants to know like where the billionaires are, vacationing, but nobody wants to know like who's actually in the hard work, figuring out what their values are, what they care about in the world, what they have unique ability to change, right? Because I think that's the other piece. Like obviously they have all this, there's money, but there's a lot of time and talent in addition to the treasure that can be put to good use.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And
yes. Definitely.
Especially with people who have, been able to work the system such that they have billions of dollars.
Yes.
Like they obviously have gleaned a lot along the way. Like why not put all that good stuff to work? So,
that's right. There's an interesting group of people that I think work in a similar manner. At least it's my impression. You have Pierre and Pam Omadar who have done some great things with eBay.
Yeah.
And then they inspired Jeff Skoll, who ultimately started the Skoll Foundation. And then you have Learning Pal Jobs, who is also within that sort of geography physically. They're inspiring one another to do new creative things that are so high impact.
Yes.
And then I also see another trend, if I'm looking at patterns, I wouldn't say trends.
Can we stop there and just and point out that especially those examples you just mentioned, those. So I was lucky enough. So after the Giving Pledge, I worked at the Omidyar Network.
Oh yeah, great.
On the impact investing team. Yeah. And one of the coolest things was getting to very intimately understand the actual structure of what they put together, which was completely novel. And Will Fitzpatrick, a good friend who I saw last week, was the architect of that. Will is brilliant. So is all the people who helped him. Anyway, putting together the structure of a philanthropic investment firm was a crazy idea.
But innovating around it, like this is all new.
And Jeff Skoll did something similar, and Lorraine Powell Job, the Emerson Collective, is something similar, but each with a slightly different flavor. But to me, that kind of innovation around, sure, we could do philanthropy like we did it when the Gospel of Wealth came out, in the Rockefeller generation and
Andrew Carnegie,
right? Or we could
modernize it a little bit.
I don't know. And use some of our other skills. Because I think to me, one of the most dangerous things in philanthropy is the idea that you should make your money however, I'm put air quotes right now, make your money however you need to. Right. And then one day wake up and think about your legacy and be like, here's a little bit of that money. What a crazy, that makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right? But I think, until the philanthropic investment firm and that kind of hybrid model, it really, there wasn't a blueprint for that. So shout out to the people who are continuing, the people who are spending down right now, the people who are like, you know what, why are we doing this in perpetuity? And will the world even exist? Why don't we
not if we don't take action?
Yeah, how about we just do the things we're able to do right now?
And you raise a good point about still being, tread on the sneakers of some of these incredible entrepreneurs and innovators and thinkers. And, why do they want to hang up the gloves? They want to get back in. It gets their inspiration moving when they're inspiring and really like in the pit of work.
I think that's true even if you're not a billionaire. I mean, you and I are hopefully good examples of this. This is I absolutely try to bring all of this knowledge and this lens to everything that I do, whether I'm raising money for my kids, the PTA, right? Or, helping a nonprofit that's close to my heart. We all can do this.
People are bringing their whole self to that.
Yeah.
And if they're not looking at it as philanthropy where they write a check and it's off and done, this is a very new methodology of social engagement around bringing your whole self. It's like, how can we help our fellow member here do something interesting and high impact in our community? Yeah. So let's just shelf that for a moment. Cool. I also want to recognize another pattern in philanthropy, which is the women are way better at this than the men. Okay.
Mackenzie Scott.
Well, and Melissa French. I mean, I think she is really, these women are totally getting it right. Yeah. And they're not trying to put their signature on everything. And they're just saying, here, no, these are my areas of interest. Yeah. I want to just, start moving, start getting it done. Yeah.
Well, most importantly, I think the way that Mackenzie Scott has approached this, do your homework, get really granular with the organizations that have great reputations, get in there and understand who they are, who's doing the best, the most effective, etc. Apply those values and then give no strings attached.
Totally. Thank you.
That is honestly the game-changing part about this. Right. But basically, just like any organization, if you give with these strings attached, they have to do backflips to report on what you care about that is completely different from what the 40 other foundations that they're trying to scrape together funds from. Right. So all of that, do it, do your homework, live your values, and give with no strings attached. Those
Absolutely. And I also want to check another pattern here, which is in the 2002, 2003 timeframe. I want to give the chairman of the PUC at the time, Chairman Peavy, and his deputy, Daniel Adler, a real shout out here because they said, okay, we have PG&E in bankruptcy. And they need to get out of bankruptcy. And so in order to do that, they're going to have to put $30 million into this newly formed organization. And it was called a 501(c)(3).
Cute. Play on 501(c)(3), which is the tax status of nonprofits.
Correct.
And then VC like venture capital.
So they were actually a 501(c)(3) officially, but it became because they became a fund-to-fund investor in clean economy companies. Clean economy funds.
Yeah. Fund of funds, meaning
that's right.
You might have
so I think that this creativity around capitalization and capital formation is really interesting.
And corporate form. This is where we have to give a shout out to Suze McCormick.
Yes.
One of my favorite humans of time.
Yeah, I freaking love Suze. She's like an OG.
She is super OG, and she is the mother of corporate form, meaning work the corporate form to do what you want it to do. So we created this incentive structure essentially, right? The tax code is basically just who gets subsidies for doing what we deem to be charitable.
That's right.
And we decide is the crazy part, right? Like we can decide that. We don't have to wait for someone. And also you can design your company. You can design your, there's lots of ways to do this, but the thing that she is kind of known for is how do I design this organization in the best way to serve the actual goals? So
the outcome goals. Right.
We thought there was just like the C Corp, here's my business, right?
Yeah.
Or you can do a nonprofit, 501c3. There's so much in between.
C4, C5, C6.
Yeah.
You can do LLCs, you can do SPVs.
PBCs, the public benefit corporation.
It also gives us a great segue into your experience with Commonwealth Fusion systems. And I think that's very important because it is an energy related thing. And if we do in fact unlock infinite, firm, clean energy on the planet of Earth, which is basically like putting a star on Earth in a lunchbox. Yeah. It's pretty extraordinary. Then
everything changes.
Yes. Because then you say, well, abundance everywhere, because I can almost do any work.
Goodbye scarcity
for free.
mindset.
Exactly.
It's infinite.
It's extraordinary.
Infinite energy.
Just from the moment you started. So the team was, Bob and Dan and 4 or 5 others that started Commonwealth Fusion Systems in a basement at MIT. And I'm super impressed with them. Continue to be impressed. Tell me, how did that all begin? Because you were probably at that point with Omidyar Network, I would guess.
I had just left Omidyar and started my own strategy consulting firm.
Okay, all right.
And we basically ended up. This part's actually kind of funny. We're talking about fusion energy, the power of the stars here on Earth.
Fuse, not fish.
That's right.
Right. So that's just the basics. And if anyone wants a good tutorial, they have to sign up to Dan Bruner's newsletter, which is absolutely, it's like Fusion for Dummies.
Dan is the best. Yes. Please shout out to, what is it called? Fortnite, the Fusion Fortnite.
Yes, it is. Fusion Fortnite.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Shout out Dan. Okay. So yes, just as you described, Commonwealth Fusion Systems is a spin out, if you will, from MIT. So MIT has been leading the research on fusion energy for, 65 years or whatever we're at this point. And the government's been funding it. I came on as a consultant, and basically did whatever needed to be done, right? We were launching. They were like a few months from launching, maybe. Couple months from launching.
Meaning launching the company. Students and a professor coming to do like a walk around.
Okay.
Wow.
They had the business plan. They were like pretty far along.
So folks from Sloan might have helped them a little.
They were, I
hope.
Well, and I think this, that Bob actually has a master's degree in how to bring transformative technologies to market.
Yeah.
I came on to help them think about the sort of the non-fusion energy stuff of building the company, like raising money. And like we worked on hiring. Like I was kind of, I got to be kind of gut check on some of the big first hires. Right. We created the, the maternity leave and the paternity leave like process and the the HR handbook. And in the early days when we were launching, I flew out there and was just like, I'm hands, like, what do you need? And so I ended up helping Dan design the website, writing the press release. Yeah, for sure. Like me and Dan being like, I don't know, like, let's edit this part. And then ended up going on to some other projects and then coming back and getting hired to pick up on the Series B and to like finish that process. Which, I had helped them on the fundraising stuff in the early days. And there was a lot of like, how do we think about like dilutive, non-dilutive capital? Like, how do we think about who we should have in and all of that stuff? Sure. But I think the takeaway and the sort of, it was so fun. And this was, once again, coming in when we're launching a new organization and we have to set those things from the very beginning. I mean, I will not claim credit for them having values, right? They had, in fact, the 4 values that are still to this day on the website have been consistent since day one. The integrity, execution, but helping translate those into what does that mean, and having some of it I was just watching, but some of it I got to be in the mix and help think about what does that value mean for the way we decide this huge company decision. So knowing that about who they are at their core and how they approach those kinds of decisions was an incredible experience. But it also gives me the confidence in those people and their approach and why. And to me, it informs everything I do when I'm working with a new organization to say, you're putting the cart before the horse. Like, you need to figure this out before you even take the next step.
Right. When, in a similar way, and I love that story because the way I work with earlier companies is, let's figure out what the vision is first. And everyone goes,
what are we doing?
Yeah. Like, everyone says like, oh, we need to know the mission. And it's like, no, the vision is actually the most important thing because it sets your North Star.
Yeah.
And that is the vision. And then we create the mission, which is basically the map to get you there. And then the values are the baggage that you carry, the axe and the ropes and all the other stuff. And that is the package, but they go in that chronology.
Yeah.
You've got to set that vision first.
Yeah.
And transitioning a bit now because we're now in a world of AI. You were very involved with the Department of Commerce.
Yep.
And that is an important chapter because we're living so deeply in it. And frankly, we have the potential for running off the road fairly quickly. And the value of this all going to those very few individuals that are controlling the action here.
Yeah. So after Fusion, I was like, ooh, what else? What other big cool stuff? Oh, AI. So in 21, 2, I joined Responsible Innovation Labs. Again, in this case, the group was started. Like, this was not launching a new organization. It was launched. And I came on to think about, it was bigger than AI. It was about responsible innovation writ large.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And it was, tech founders and investors coming together to put together an organization to help do exactly what you were just talking about, that we were just talking about. How do you set things right in a company from the beginning? Because guess what? It's almost impossible to kind of retroactively, right?
Absolutely.
And I think all kinds of founders, we know this,
real hard.
All kinds of people make this mistake.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, it's fine. We're small. It's like I tell my kids. I'm like, yeah, the little lies are small, but guess what? Once you're down that road, it's just easy to keep going down that road.
Sure.
So anyway, so that was the basis of Responsible Innovation Labs. Specifically, the AI project was about how can we write the playbook for responsible AI for startups. So this was the ChatGPT launch came out after we had started this
November
project.
24.
Yes. Yeah. And so we were thinking hard about, sure, if you're the big tech companies, you've got a whole team working on this, and you can read every policy paper and you can do whatever you need to do. Startups need to we need the
you need
what is the quick and dirty?
The B Corp version,
what do I need to know?
The safe note version.
Yeah.
Something that's just a template.
And if something that I can follow and get it right from the beginning, what are the data, data retention policies? What are the ethics behind this? It was that kind of really concrete stuff. And so we put together a working group, this is like so near and dear to my heart, is be among smart, amazing, varied people who know things and be out of my own league. On a personal level, I want to be out of my league every day if possible.
Right.
Like, that is my goal in choosing work. Yeah. Do I know anything about this? I don't? Okay, fabulous.
Sign me up.
Does it scare me sometimes? Yeah. I almost don't take meetings every once in a while, but that's my goal, is like, put me in a room where I don't know any of the acronyms.
Wow.
That's my goal.
That's right.
Because you can learn so much, right?
Yeah.
And so the working group of people was everyone from AI researchers, like the super OG people who have been like in this forever. People at some of the like model builder, right? Like the large language model builders, like people who are in the thick of building this stuff. Startup founders, obviously. Startup founders in and without, inside the AI space and outside of it completely, to have that kind of a mix. Some policy people, some kind of like, we put together, it was an incredible working group. It's on the website. You can check it out. And it was just a proud moment to be, you know, it was really like, I don't have the reputation in this world. The founder of the group, John Ziegler, had sort of earned that credibility and trust of the people who we all kind of, and you know, I worked my networks too, but we recruited this incredible group of people who pushed each other and we ended up creating the framework, the templates, it was literally a package of things that said, here's what responsible AI looks like for startups.
Voluntary.
And here's what to do. Absolutely. And then we got people to voluntarily sign on to, hey, I want to follow this. I'm an investor. Here's my commitment. You know, I'm going to make sure I'm looking for this when I'm looking at my companies, and I'm going to help my companies, right? That people always forget about that, right?
Yeah.
We still have the ability to make sure that we're shaping it, but we're not on a good path toward doing anything that makes sense. Even just like basic regulations.
I'm glad you're hopeful.
I mean, I guess yes, I am on all things hopeful and on many things not optimistic. When I think about whether or not we're going to do a good job regulating AI, not optimistic about it.
No, I agree.
But I am absolutely hopeful because guess what? Most humans agree on most humans agree on most common sense regulations of all kinds.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not that complicated, actually.
Right.
The reason it's complicated is we've made this incentive structure. We've created a system that makes it complicated and it incentivizes, you know, winners and losers and people kind of pitted against each other and like not talking about common sense stuff, talking about like really edge casey kind of stuff. Yeah. So we can change that. That's what I'm hopeful about. We don't have to live like that. We just have made a bargain to do that so far.
Well, I think that the municipal engagement is a great way to start talking about what's happening here at Innovators Group, because part of this is about engaging our representatives in what we're doing. But most importantly, I think, and it's my personal experience being part of this group, is that, you know, it started around a coffee table, sort of inspiring each other.
Yeah.
That, you know, I'm of course different from you. I have different skills. You have different skills. Others in the group have different skills. They have even different industries of interest.
Yeah.
But all of it affects the fabric of our place.
Yeah.
So
the original idea was just, let's each invite some friends. And that's when I met you. The original idea was come around a literal coffee table. We literally got our coffee in the back of one of the coffee shops here, sat around the table with no agenda. Like there was it was literally just like, for me, it was like, you know, let me go find some interesting people.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning, it was just about like some cool people, right? It ended up that we got a pretty special crew of people. And pretty quickly we learned that we shared this sort of what I would now call, like, that's why it's called Innovators. Some of us are in the nonprofit, you know, we're nonprofit world, in the corporate world, some of us in the startup world, but we have a bunch of ideas, but we actually do them.
Yeah.
Right. And like make them happen and fail a lot and learn things. And we're at a certain age where we've gotten some wisdom. So it kind of, just by nature of the kinds of backgrounds we've had, the kinds of people who would show up to a coffee shop on a Friday morning for funsies. Like, let's see, there's some good people here want to try out. There's something special about kind of person who's going to come to that. And then it grew from there because we wanted to essentially, I think it turned into this, how do we help each other? And that, I think, was the first kind of pivotal moment where we were like, oh, like we can help each other explicitly, and not in a like, you scratch my back, in a, hey, it was because a friend of ours came to one of those early meetings and said, I'm in the middle of this.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
she said, I don't know how to do
right.
this.
That's
and
right.
you guys
was
might.
that the first one?
That was the first
was
official. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the first
so
one.
Shout out to a couple of people that definitely need to be acknowledged here.
Yeah.
Gabe, Matt,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Like
the OGs. The OGs.
There were people that would come regularly at the last Friday of every month.
Correct.
And we had no agenda whatsoever. And
Right.
as you've described so perfectly, this was not a quid pro quo engagement. This was not transactional in any way.
Right.
People were looking for safer community. They were looking to decarbonize the community. They were looking for better education in the community. They were looking for more bike paths. They were looking for
That's true,
better food systems, cleaner water. Like, how do we make this place even better than it already is?
We're all in love with this place.
That was it.
But
that was it.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't anything but that. And then Carol brings this, like, I'm really having trouble unpacking this one.
Yeah.
And I think there was magic in the telling.
Yes.
That was my observation, is
yeah.
that just her unpacking it with us in a
With
trusted environment
Yep.
helped her. And then there were some suggestions.
Yeah.
And then she moved the gem and saw a new facet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to,
and it helped her go forward. And now she's just elated with the outcome and performing to her, best and elegantly having the success and abundance. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was the trust that we built.
Trust. I think that's it.
That was the key.
That's it. Cause we didn't jump into, we weren't like, now we have this like pretty formalized system and we do a thing.
There's a toolbox now.
Yeah. We have this playbook now.
Yep.
But in the beginning it was just people who over the course of a few months had gotten to know each other and built that trust.
Right. Exactly.
And just shown up.
Yes.
And we were starting to build this community, right? Like we all wanted to be there, but but the trust and the laying bare of, like, I think that she knew that there was this group of pretty varied backgrounds. And she got the like full on, some actual, like, here's some steps and here's some like whatever. And like, I had a lawyer who I was like, here, girl, if you need that, yeah, exactly. If you need like somebody got your back for that, there were some like very concrete things, but I think you're right that the trust and the sort of the history with each other allowed what I think of as the messiness to come out.
And her vulnerability was
vulnerable.
Key.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It was key.
Exactly.
Key. She trusted enough,
and
to
that's on
out.
her. We got to give her like that.
Right.
Maybe no one else could have modeled and started something in the way that she did.
That's true.
Yeah, because you're right. The vulnerability, she was able to
essential.
just say, like, guys, I've never done this before.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was
I know how to run this company.
Know.
Like, I know a lot of things. And actually that balance of, I actually, there's a quiet confidence, right? But that balance of vulnerability with the confidence, the humility with that confidence, to just say like, this is one that keeps me up at night. And here's the complications.
Right.
So I think the magic that we hit upon was, and credit to Gabe for the Help Me Solve This framework that I had first experienced actually, at a conference that he was running. And so, this basic framework comes from that.
I think that's an idea
and maybe it comes originally from he's the best. But also I think the larger point is we each stand on the shoulders of, right? Like that's true in all parts of life. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Take what works and then make it work for your community, right? And that's what we were doing, is like, let's take this, okay, so this formula, this format there's something powerful here.
Yeah.
Let's ask each other questions. So like, lay out the messy problem. ask each other questions. Like, let's surface some, like, let's get clear on what you actually want from us. I think,
Right.
at least in my experience, like, that's often what we do in the question is be like, you laid this out, but do you actually want help with this related but adjacent thing?
Right.
You know, and oftentimes that is where
That's right.
we focus all of our
That's
time,
right. That's right.
and it's not even what they expected, you know?
I do want to ask you a question, which I'm not exactly sure the answer to, which is, how was the trust built in this case? Because it's so essential, and it really does help other groups, whether they're in, Colorado or Nebraska or in New York. How do people emulate that trust environment?
Yeah, you're right. This is the key. I think let's go back to what we did in the very beginning, which was we said, I remember thinking about this ahead of time on the way. I think this hit me in the car on the way to one of our first meetings. 'Cause I'm a community builder, so I want to make sure that I'm setting things up well.
Right.
And one of the introductions is actually, I think, one of the answers to your question. We sat around and we said two things. We said, what do we love about this place we live, about our community?
Right.
What is special?
Yeah.
Like, I forget what the exact frame, but something around like our community and why we live here.
Right.
Like, how did we choose this place that we all belong to and are a part of? And then what's the thing, not what do you do for a living or what's your title, or like in Washington, D.C., when I lived there, it was really just, and this is true in Silicon Valley, they just ask it differently. Basically, how close are you to power? Like, really, that's what, that's what networking events almost always are like.
Sure.
I've got my name tag and this is the title and whatever. And that's really what people are sussing each other out for.
Right.
So instead of all that, we said, what do you love about the place you live?
Yeah.
And who are you? Like, what's the thing that you do that makes you come alive? Or I forget exactly how but really, who are you? Like, what drives you? You can talk about your work, but talk about it in the sense of like, what are you doing in the world?
Yeah. What's the best part of it?
And I think that combination, at least it's the combination that is in the, group name now. I think that combination is, first of all, gave us that connection. Like, we all share this thing. We live in this community. And some of us have industry or career connect. Like, some of us have things in common that way, but not all of us.
No.
Right?
No.
And I think that understanding whatever industry or title you have, whatever, what drives you, that like foundational thing builds trust.
Yes.
I think.
Yes. And I think the absence, or at least maybe it was in the questions, or there was something implicit about it. It was, we're not trying to live where I'm going to show you how better I am than you.
Right. There was no one-upsman from the very beginning.
Yes.
That's just never what it was about.
I think that comes to the foundational group in some way.
Yeah.
Because we all are confident. So I don't know how you emulate that. I'm just thinking about the toolbox for how you replicate this.
Exactly. Like, who do you choose as your core group? It's same as we did Giving Pledge, right?
Okay.
It's like role models. You find your role models. Nobody was super insecure, because insecurity is what leads people to be like, I'm very important.
I know better than you.
Yes, and I have
there wasn't any of that.
None of that.
Right from now.
The range is pretty incredible. The range is incredible. And actually, I think you're like making the mix. I do actually think some of the creativity that we talked about it in the last meeting, we have, I think the mix is really critical. Certainly it's more diverse, when you're brainstorming.
Why is that? Is it because you're curious and you want to learn? When you say that, I say that makes me more interested in being involved, because I'm like, I totally don't understand that business, but I'm like really curious about it.
But tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was
exactly.
When we learned about the farming community business through, Suzanne's work, I was like,
wait, what? I know.
That's happening right here. I didn't even know.
I didn't even know any of this. I think you're right. And there's the locality, like the actual place-based part of this.
Definitely.
I think, because it's not just, here's a bunch of random industries. It's like all of these people are doing this literally
here.
right here.
Yeah.
And a lot of this thing is happening under my nose.
I was thinking about the toolkit, which is great from around the mechanics. I was thinking about the trust and how do you build that trust to get that vulnerability, to really get those breakthroughs. I think that that's super important. I still think you got to bring curiosity. The members have to be curious about one another,
each other,
about themselves.
Yes.
Like that curiosity bug is so important.
But the reflection capability and the leads to the ability to be vulnerable and talk honestly. Again, we all have little pods. Say it's it's an industry focused event. Anyway, there are lots of groups that exist. We're now 2 years in. It's 43 people who call this, who are members, quote unquote, who call this their community.
Yeah.
Those are all incredibly busy people who have a million other things to do.
Yes.
But every month, like on the last Friday, they come together.
Yeah. It's like a personal investment they're making.
They're voting with their time and energy,
you've got to block the time.
And you got to show up. I mean, I think like one of the things that's critical, and I think we did it just, I don't know. I mean, somewhat intentionally and somewhat sometimes you get lucky with the kinds of people, to your point. But the intentionality of we're all going to come, but we're going to come with help. John, by the way, coined I think it's the phrase that I think first about this. You called us, you were saying this to someone, you were explaining our group to someone who was new to the group. And you said, I think maybe you even said like, we're not like an investment club or something like that. You said, we're a group of helpers and doers.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of people that you want to recruit, right? Like that's who you need to start.
Yeah. And it was also peer to peer. So you invited a friend. I've invited a friend or two to come. Yeah. And so there is a relationship thing that does drive the stronger community. So there is that. And people come, I mean, in fairness, some people come once or twice and then we don't ever see them again. Yeah. And that's fine.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because maybe it just doesn't work with their schedule or whatever it is.
Well, and that's been interesting too. I think one of my biggest lessons, having been part of and built lots of groups, one of my biggest surprises was how often, like, there are so many people who don't show up, but who are sending me texts or emails on this backside being like, oh my God, I loved hearing how awesomely, like, this group is growing like wildfire. I'm so excited. I'm going to be able to come one of these days, but my schedule changed or I just don't have time right now, but I'm working back into it. Or, like our poor teacher who cannot come because his schedule changed, but we're exploring, partially because of that, we're exploring like, what other times, what other things can we do? Like part of it is just like rolling with the surprise was how many people really find the same kind of value that I do in it. Yep. And then even when they're not showing up, there's a lot of value, I guess, out there in the world because of this. Even if they can't be part of it every month, they're getting value out of it somehow or another. Or the tons of people who have met each other through this, or who are working together because of this, or who have projects going on, and they're creating it from scratch.
I know.
They're like, we're just gonna
go over this club
and
we're gonna meet up. I mean, some of this AI and screen time and all this stuff is creating this disconnection with being human and sitting in front of one another
in real life.
In real life is, and what I said just at the beginning of what we were talking about is going out into nature and like being aware of there is a wind.
A walking version, John.
That would be kind of fun.
Host that.
Yes, that'd be fun.
That'd be awesome. Just take us on one
sunrise.
of your rocks.
Yeah. Well, everyone can take care of my dog.
We'll take turns. Everyone can bring their dog.
He doesn't listen to anyone.
Including you?
No, he listens to me. But others, he's just like, who are you?
He's like, I'm sorry. And you are?
Yeah, no, not my people. He's got his people.
Then he's not invited because we need listeners and helpers.
I get it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think that creating the toolbox for people to replicate, I think that people being very serious about this, how do you form the group from the origin story?
Yeah.
I think that the things that perpetuate the growth around curiosity.
Yeah. Why do people keep coming back?
And, like they know it's going to be a place that we're not trying to like see how smart we are.
Yeah.
And
Nobody's
it's not
trying to
about
prove
me.
anything.
It's not about me. It's about
there's a
us,
little,
and there's a
very
share.
little ego. Yes.
And I think that's the tool, that's the thing that we can create and give.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have. I mean, that's one of the coolest things that's happened in these 2 years is there is actually another innovators group that has already started. And it basically, they're on their second meeting but it's growing like wildfire.
And where is this happening?
So in Dover, New Hampshire.
Okay.
They're meeting.
Go Dover, New Hampshire.
Hey,
Yeah.
shout out.
Yes.
Good job. Basically, a friend of mine had heard about this and we had a conversation and I sent the documents and I was like, hey, here's the playbook, quote unquote. Like if anything is useful, please put it to use, like do what works and see. Totally. And I'd love to hear about it. Like I'm so excited this is happening. So, and some of this that we were already talking about, but he was asking me like, what is the criteria of the people? And that is one of the, we're talking about the kind of, the little ego and like, how do you build trust and kind of, I think sort of there are norms set, whether you mean to or not. But anytime a group of humans meets, usually they're communicated non-verbally. Usually it's very under the surface. And I don't think I certainly have not done a good job, like I've not written that part down. Like I don't fully know how to verbalize.
I think it's hard.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it is just.
But I think we're capturing some of it here.
I think
just by us talking about it openly.
Yeah.
I think it does help to identify like what are the things that actually have created that environment to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful that we're seeing a duplication.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. And I encourage anywhere across the world to take this playbook and consult back and say, hey, how did this work? How did that work? Like the more that we do this, the more that we build strong local communities. And the more that we do this, the more that we innovate, and not as a bad word like high risk, because some people hear the word innovation and they hear risk.
Yeah.
And
or at any cost, or at any
I mean, I think that
or disrupt for the sake of disruption
and breaking
blow it
things. It seems like people are associating innovation with breaking things, which is
interesting. No, you're right.
So I think that this is
for understandable reasons. Looking back at the last decade.
That's right, or the last 24 months, we can succeed in the things that we want to see in our local communities by being in concert and being in community together.
Yes.
So I think that that's really a key element.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, on a personal level, when I look around at how overwhelmingly anxiety producing the world is right now, right? I think I literally not met a person who wasn't overwhelmed. I don't care what side of the spectrum or how you come to anything. The world is changing so fast, and it is like there's a whole bunch going on that we can name. In that environment, what is the thing you can do is be in your local community and make change in your local community. And that sounds so like platitude-y cliche, but
no, it's in action.
You're doing
it's in action,
and it is so fulfilling.
Yes.
I think like the reason this is so near and dear to my heart is because I can see it. It is actually like, even if it's just these 10 humans who have gone through this to help me solve this process, and that we know because they've come back and told us it makes a difference. Even if it's just people getting jobs and working on projects together or in our little community, that has the ripple effects that we're talking about. And so instead of, I'm talking to myself here, instead of trying to change the world and take on everything all by myself and be instead go local, literally and figuratively, and bring it back down to a level that we can actually impact change. And then from there, that's how the real change that's how movements are built.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me on People in Commons podcast.
Thank you for joining.
Now I'm going to hand the mic back to you. So back to our host, Jama Adams, on People in Common.
Shout out to you, John. That was awesome. What a treat to be interviewed on my own podcast about something so wonderful that you and I share.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps other listeners discover the show. You can find People in Common on all major podcast platforms, and we'd love to hear from you on social media. Until next time, take care.